As we start today, I always like to say thank you for so many kind words, and I continue to get lots of comments over all the social media forums, whether it be at affairrecovery.com, our YouTube channel. Now there's a podcast called the Overcoming Infidelity podcast that you can find on any of your podcast finders. There's even an Instagram account, but I need to tell you that it's hard to keep up with the comments. And so if you see less and less responses from me, it's simply because I have become overwhelmed in a very positive way. And let's just say nobody's getting rich doing this, so there isn't an assistant that I'm going to hire anytime soon to answer my comments for me. The reality is we're all doing the best that we can. And so as you hopefully find these videos helpful and insightful, and my prayer that it would be life-changing, some of the information that you receive here, because you're learning how to navigate through a crisis that you probably didn't ask for or created on your own and now hate that you created, and you're looking for insight, you're looking for a light through the tunnel, and I hope that I can continually be that light in whatever shape, fashion, or form I'm allowed. But please understand, if you don't hear from me in a comment or an email, it's simply because I'm overwhelmed and doing the best that I can. A question was sent to me recently, and the question was, Samuel, I appreciate the help for so many betrayed spouses who are trying to get movement because their unfaithful spouse won't get help. But what about the unique nuance where the betrayed spouse refuses to get help? The unfaithful, maybe they've sobered up, maybe they've kind of come clean, maybe they've become desperate, but they're trying to get help and they want to get help, but the betrayed spouse is either refusing to get help or just flat out is not sure if they want to get help, and they're not taking any action. What do you, as an unfaithful spouse, do then? Before I answer the question of what do you do when the betrayed spouse won't get help, let me give you some reasons why the betrayed spouse won't get help. And I don't know that this is an exhaustive list, but in many ways this will help cover a lot of basis as to why a betrayed spouse is either refusing to get help or just won't get help or is very sluggish in any type of forward movement in terms of recovery work together as a couple. I think one of the first reasons as to why the betrayed spouse is incredibly apprehensive to get help or just won't get help is because of the fact that there is an immense amount of shame for the betrayed spouse to go get help or to become known in their situation. The truth is, there is far more shame for the betrayed spouse than there is for the unfaithful to a certain extent. It was incredibly challenging for Samantha to hold her head up high when her spouse, me, had cheated and had an affair with another woman for roughly 2 years. The shame that she has had to walk through is pretty diabolical. You see, for the unfaithful, in an oversimplification, if we can rise up, get back up, do recovery work, and maybe get back to the man or woman that we were before, or become a better version of that man or woman that we were, and kind of get right, there's this heroic kind of, oh, great, you got back up and you owned it and you're doing better. But for the betrayed spouse, there's this real sense of shame associated with her, this dishonor that somehow in the eyes of society or in pockets of society like, Gossip Fest or what have you, that somehow he or she did something that would justify their spouse cheating. So when a betrayed spouse walks into a counseling office or a church office or a priest's office or what have you, there's automatically a sense of shame that's different than the unfaithful spouse's shame. Yes, I walk through the door and go, yep, here's the idiot, here's the selfish bastard that ruined everybody's life, yes. But there's another form of shame that the betrayed feels when they walk in and is like, yes, and this is what they feel, sort of, Yes, I was insufficient, so I didn't have enough sex. I didn't treat them like they were awesome. I didn't, make my life all about them, and so I wasn't enough, and they did what they did. You see, there's this wall of shame that the betrayed has to war through initially, and none of those statements are true that I just made. So please understand that that's the voices of shame, that are the voices of shame that many betrayed spouses have to war through. So at some level, it's really not exciting for a betrayed spouse to, let's go get help. Let's go reveal that I was a terrible failure as a spouse, so you felt like you needed to cheat. Oh, sign me up for that meeting. I can't wait. Because what if that betrayed spouse, male or female, walks into that office and that professional, that leader, that whomever, is of the opinion that if they were a better spouse, their spouse wouldn't have cheated. I mean, can you imagine the horror, the fear, the magnitude of the trepidation for a betrayed spouse to expose themselves to that type of situation? So if you're wondering, man, why won't my betrayed spouse get help? That might be a reason. Number two, if they've already been mishandled by a professional, if they've already been mishandled by someone of that stature, why would they want to subject themselves to that again? And it doesn't have to have been about infidelity. It could have been about childhood issues. They may have had a bad experience with a professional, and now to think that they want to take probably the most vulnerable piece of their life right now and hand it over to someone who isn't an expert, isn't at any level qualified to handle this level of trauma, nobody wants to sign up for that. Nobody wants to subject themselves to that level of hurt and mishandling. Another reason why the betrayed spouse may not want to get help is they're not sure if they even want to save the marriage. Now, the truth is, you should get help even if you're unsure about the marriage, because the way that you're going to become sure about the marriage or sure about divorce is by getting expert help and vetting out what's really going on with an expert's support and direction. Because if you find the right people, you'll get into the right process, and then you can begin to find out where you want to be and why. Another reason is because maybe the betrayed hasn't fully absorbed the anger, the pain, the PTSD. Maybe it's all swirling around, and you as an unfaithful may think, well, they just want to get divorced, or, oh, they're just angry, or, oh, they just want to make me suffer. I used to think that too. And at some level, there may be about a 10% truth somewhere in there that sometimes they do want you to suffer. Sometimes they're tired of you always being in control, and so they want to be in control. Yeah, that's a small part of it. A bigger part of it, I have found, is that they just don't always have the emotional capacity to do this kind of recovery work yet. They're exhausted. They're overwhelmed. They'd rather live in denial. I mean, friends, we're not dealing with bankruptcy, although that's traumatizing. We're not dealing with, a car accident, although it can be severely traumatizing. We're dealing with one of the most diabolical, traumatic events a person can go through, next to something like rape or molestation and things of that nature. I mean, this is at the top of the trauma scale. So to think that they are just waiting and waiting to go get help, some of them are that way, but a lot of them are not quite there yet, and that's okay. You have to be patient and have an allowance for the fact that we deserve the right to be in process in our recovery or our repair work. Another reason the betrayed may not be willing to get help is they don't feel like you're safe. They feel like you're going to go into counseling and you're just going to tar and feather them. You're just going to place all the blame on them. And I would say conservatively, at least 60% of the time, the unfaithful spouse, male or female, is a master manipulator, gaslighter, salesman, saleswomen. They have the ability to paint a picture that would make the betrayed look like this horrible human being. So do you think they're just chomping at the bit to subject themselves to that situation? Probably not. And remember, as I close this part of the video with reasons why the betrayed may not want to get help so fast, remember, and this is going to hurt, so unfaithful, strap yourself in. I'm not trying to piss you off. I am trying to help you, and this helped me. Remember, you're in the situation you're in because of what you have done. They didn't ask for this. Sure, they have some deficiencies maybe. Sure, maybe they were difficult. Sure, maybe your needs weren't being met. Sure, you are frustrated about the marriage. I get it. But there was a million other things you could have done instead of have an affair. There was a million other things I could have done instead of having an affair. And so they are where they are at because of your choices. That's not a shaming, tormenting, harassing comment. That is from one unfaithful to another, just helping you remember why you are where you are. What do you do if you're an unfaithful and your betrayed spouse won't get help? Number one, probably the easiest to digest is get help for you as soon as you can, as often as you can, as desperate as you can. If you want to help sway them into getting help, show them the changes that are happening in your life. Notice I did not say tell them. If you have to tell me about all the changes that are going on in your life, I don't think that there's a lot of changes. We should all see them. We should see the changes. We should see the differences in the way you see things, the way you handle things, the way you believe about yourself, about maybe God, or maybe the egalitarian worldview. There should be a change that your betrayed spouse should be able to see. When I was working with kids years and years ago, I used to tell them, stop telling your parents how great of a young boy or girl you are. Go make your bed, clean your room, do the dishes one night. Stop talking to your parents about how great you are and start showing them your maturity level. And I offer the same advice to you as an unfaithful. If there have been so many changes going on inside of you, communicate about them. Show them in the way you drive, because I drove really bad and Samantha hated it. Show them in the way that you deal with waiters and waitresses, or the public, or your kids, or in how you come home at night, what you do around the house. I mean, yes, you think, this is just uber practical stuff. Yes, and the way that you handle uber practical stuff is a display of the humility or lack thereof in your life. If you want to see the betrayed eventually start to do work, show them how doing work is changing your own life. Next, and this is going to probably cause some of you as an unfaithful to go, become a servant to your betrayed spouse and your betrayed's hurt. Serve them, yes, and now they're going to accuse you of kissing up to them, right? When you try and make them breakfast in bed, or you do little things, or what have you, they're going to go, you're just sorry you got caught and now you're sucking up. Okay, you know what? Take that. You deserve it anyway. Own it. And then move on to the next stage, which is be a servant of their hurt. What does that mean? Letting them vent, letting them be angry, letting them cry, not trying to fix it, not trying to make it go away, not trying to get defensive when they start talking about their own hurt and pain, just taking it, becoming a servant of them and a servant of their hurt, where you can say, man, you've just dumped on me this hurt, and you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to hold it and go, you know what? You're right. And I don't have any answers for you. And I just want you to know that I'm glad that you shared with me. And another thing, take it. I have taken a lot from Samantha. I deserved it to a certain extent. I'm not promoting, if you're new to this video, I'm not promoting this, you're a doormat for the rest of your life mentality. I'm not saying that at all. But allow them the freedom to be hurt. Allow them the liberty to be in process. Allow them the liberty to just be kind of messed up right now. Next, if you're an unfaithful, be patient with the fact that They are in process, and you don't need to make any decisions right now. It's important that you're able to be patient and say, look, take all the time that you need. Now, I wish I could say I came up with that on my own, but some pretty hellacious fights with Samantha brought me to my knees, kind of metaphorically at times, and Rick would say, have you ever said to Samantha, you know what, honey, I get that you're upset. Take all the time that you need. I'll be here when you're ready, and we'll be okay. And I wrote it down on my phone. And I remember the first time I said it to Samantha, I can remember we were in the kitchen, all the kids were gone, we were in this pretty hellacious fight, and I just said, well, and I remembered, and I took a deep breath because I was trying to not be a salesman, and I said, I want you to take all the time that you need, and when you're ready, I'll be here. And I don't know if you've seen this funny meme that's all over Instagram and different places of The Rock. He's like driving and he looks back with this face of, and she was kind of throwing dishes, or not throwing them, but putting them away. And she looked over at me like, what did he, and I know in her mind, she was like, what did he just say? And so I just looked at her and she was like, okay. And she shook her head like this. And so I walked away and gave her space. And later on, she had said to me, that was really, really good. That made me feel safe. It'll make your betrayed spouse feel safe. If you can say and mean, I want you to take all the time that you need, and I'll be here when you're ready, and I'm sorry. Try it. I'm sure that it can't get much worse than maybe some of the other things that you've said when you were defensive or angry or full of shame, right? Now, as an unfaithful, there is this point of don't make any decisions yet. However, there is the understanding that there will come a time, like someone who recently messaged me and said, it's been 4 years, my betrayed spouse has not done any work, I've done a lot of work, but I don't know if I should carry on in the relationship or not. It's been 4 years. I don't know. My response to you is, I don't know either. You have to decide. Now, if you're betrayed, please hear me out. As an unfaithful, there's a point where it may be at a certain year mark. I don't know what that mark is. For some, it could be 2. For some, it could be 4, maybe 7. I don't know. But you may be at the point where you say, I don't know how long I can keep doing this. It's okay to have that thought. Now, you may say, wait a minute, Samuel, they cheated and they did this and it's their fault. True, they did what they did. But there is an onus on the betrayed to help themselves. We can't do it for you. We can go make money to provide for you to get help. We can serve your hurt. We can do everything that we can to create space for you to take action. But if you refuse to take action, we are left in a position where we have to then, as an unfaithful, decide, do we keep doing what we're doing, or is the relationship over? I don't know the answer to your situation. That's a decision that you have to make. I fully support the fact that just as the unfaithful has to get help to help themselves, that the betrayed cannot do it for them. The betrayed has to take action to heal themselves, or they can stay stuck in the trauma and the hurt and the pain that they're in, and nobody can make that betrayed do the work for themselves. For both unfaithful and betrayed, if you find the right people, I'm confident the right people will have the right process. You can go to affairrecovery.com and find some wonderful people, and you can find some wonderful support, and you can absolutely find an expert process for both of you and your individual recoveries, and maybe even the recovery of your relationship.